I decided it was time to do a full Christian witchcraft breakdown. Yes, I'm filming this on TikTok and I'm just gonna download it and then upload it to YouTube. It makes my editing job easier. And I unfortunately do not yet have the feature where I can download videos without the watermark, so you're probably gonna see the watermark floating around. I'm sorry. If I get that feature, I will implement it, assuming TikTok doesn't get banned. But that's why I'm starting to upload some more long form content on here, just in case, right? So, my name's Hannah, and I'm a Christian witch, which might sound like a little bit of an oxymoron if you're new to this. My primary audience from TikTok, they already know, right? But for people who are new, or for people who maybe want to start the Christian witch journey for themselves, but they just don't know where to start, or they've heard all the arguments as to why you can't be a Christian witch, maybe you're one of the people saying, hey, you can't do that. I'm here to explain why you in fact can. If you're willing to listen, of course. First, we're going to discuss what is a Christian witch. Then we're going to discuss pretty much all the arguments that I've heard as to why you can't be a Christian witch. And I'm going to debunk all of those arguments using the Bible and some other books as well. And from the other books, that will lead me into other resources on Christian witchcraft for those who are interested. As always, make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of this kind of content, and I'll try to answer more questions down the road, but I get the most questions about this topic, obviously. There's a bunch of trucks driving around outside my apartment, so you might hear some beeping and truck noises, I'm sorry. But first and foremost, what is a Christian witch? In short, it is someone who practices witchcraft and worships Jesus. That's it. That's all. You probably don't follow a lot of the primary mainstream doctrine of Christianity, apart from the, love your neighbor as yourself kind of thing. We're really good at that for the most part. And the majority of us believe that the miracles that Jesus performed were actually an act of magic. We cast spells, we have an appreciation for nature and animals. In fact, my practice is so similar to that of any other witch that people who are new to me and my platform will be like, wait, you're a Christian witch? Because my practice really is not a lot different from most other witches who aren't Christian witches. We also believe that the Bible is not meant to be taken literally and that it is just another piece of mythology. I view the Bible in the same way that I would view Norse mythology, the poetic and prose Eddas, or Greek mythology, the Iliad, the Odyssey, and the Aeneid. There's other Greek mythological texts as well, but you know what I mean. I view it in that same vein. And for those of you who are new to witchcraft and paganism, pagans don't take mythology literally, like mainstream Christians take the Bible literally. Pagans don't do that with their god's mythology. They still very much view mythology as a story. And you can still learn things from stories. There can still be moral takeaways from stories, right? But it's still a story, not meant to be taken literally. I view the Bible in the exact same way, which took some time and some deconstructing to get to that perspective for sure. But once you can get to that point where you realize that the Bible is not meant to be taken literally and that you can view it how you would view any other piece of mythology when working alongside the pagan gods, the doors of the things that you can do with your practice are blown wide open. I also have my Christian deity altar back here. We'll do a tour of that once we get to the end. But of course, for the people who don't realize that the Bible is just another piece of mythology, they tend to throw every verse they can possibly throw at me. Oh, it says this about witchcraft. It says this about sorcery. It says this about other gods. You can't do this. So let's look at some of those verses and determine this for ourselves. What version of the Bible are we going to be looking at today? I read the Jewish Annotated Study Bible. I have coffee ring stains on this. I'm sorry about that, but I want to explain what this Bible is really quick for the people who maybe hear the words Jewish and Bible in the same sentence and are confused or concerned. This is not Messianic Judaism. This is not anyone trying to convert anyone. This is a collaborative between a bunch of Jewish and or Hebrew scholars who put this together solely for the sake of knowledge, because Christianity is rooted in ancient Judaism. And who has an understanding of ancient Judaism better than Jewish people? There's a whole front essay introduction as to why they decided to put this together, but it's just for the sake of knowledge so that Christians can read this through the Jewish lens. Because even if you are a mainstream Christian, how many times have you read the Bible and thought to yourself, man, what does this mean? What was going on here? What is the historical context? This puts everything in a more historical context, and it translates the language better because, again, Jewish people are able to put this in the context of ancient Judaism. Do I believe that any version of the Bible is going to be 100% perfect? No. Because, for one thing, again, I believe that it's just another piece of mythology, but I also believe that it was written by humans and that humans are not perfect. There were several mistranslations and changes put in along the way. But if there's one version of the Bible that is as close as we can get to a perfect version of the Bible, it's the Jewish Study Bible. Now, this one that I'm holding in my hands and that I'm going to use for reference is just the Old Testament. But there is such a thing as the Jewish annotated New Testament, which I will also show something from that as well. But we're primarily going to be looking at the Old Testament. As you can see, I have some pages tabbed. This is not every verse in the Bible that we could possibly analyze, but this video is going to be 4 hours long if we do that. But they pretty much all say the same thing, and the context is also the same, so we really only need to look at a few. The first thing that we need to do, though, is understand what makes the Jewish Study Bible unique. So I just flipped open to a random page. This verse doesn't have any significance for what we're talking about today. But here you can see, like, the biblical text, right? The verses and everything. And then here on the sides in the margins is the annotations from these scholars who are able to, like I said, interpret the language and the historical context better, okay? Now here's the verse that I actually want to look at. This is Deuteronomy 18, 9 through 14. I'll read the whole thing. It says, "When you enter the land that the Lord your God has given you, you shall not turn to imitate the abhorrent practices of those nations. Let no one be found among you who consigns his son or daughter to the fire, or who is an augur, a soothsayer, a diviner, a sorcerer, one who casts spells, or one who consults ghosts or familiar spirits, or one who inquires of the dead. For anyone who does such things is abhorrent to the Lord, and it is because of these abhorrent things that the Lord your God is dispossessing them before you. You must be wholehearted with the Lord your God. These nations that you are about to dispossess do indeed resort to soothsaying and augurs. To you, however, the Lord your God has not assigned the like." Seems pretty straightforward. You're not allowed to do soothsaying or necromancy, right? But what does the annotation have to say about this? So my bookmark is here and I have some things underlined. As you can see, this is referencing verses 9 through 14. It says, "Just as the legal corpus prohibits forms of sacrificial worship that it condemns as Canaanite, so here does it prohibit certain forms of divination which are repeatedly branded as Canaanite." Now, what's so significant about the Canaanite? Let's set the scene. The Hebrews have just escaped Egypt. The Exodus has just happened. They're wandering around now, and they are getting close to the land of Canaan, where the Canaanites live. At the time, the Canaanites were not doing very nice things to each other. In order to honor their gods, they, each other. I'm so used to TikTok censorship, I don't know what I can and can't say on here, but you know what I mean. And this is not the only place in the Bible where it is alluded to that the Hebrews did not like the Canaanites. Just one example of this can be found in Genesis 28, at the very beginning, when Isaac is blessing his son Jacob and about to send him off. He strictly tells him, do not marry a Canaanite woman. These two groups of people did not get along. It's also important to remember that this was a time before the internet, before cell phones. So when pagan gods or pagan people are referenced, the only pagan gods that the Hebrew people would have even been aware of at the time were the Egyptian gods and the Canaanite god. And they had just escaped hundreds of years of persecution and slavery in Egypt. So, okay, it might make a little bit of sense as to why, they had a bad taste in their mouths about the Egyptian gods. And also, the people of Canaan at the time were very violent. So to put it into context, God is basically saying, hey, don't take on the same violent acts that the people in Canaan are doing. Because if you guys just end up killing each other, then everything that I did to get y'all out of Egypt was for nothing. Context. But it's also important to note that magic and mysticism have always been parts of Judaism. Google Kabbalah sometime. But also, this leads us into the Jewish annotated New Testament. Now, in both the Jewish Study Bible and the Jewish Annotated New Testament, there are essays written by these scholars to, again, just put more things into context. So I'd like to point your attention to a couple of these essays. Jewish miracle workers and... What? What is that word? What does that say? In the late Second Temple period. Spoiler alert, it's not condemning magic. It even dares to say that the Witch of Endor was a miracle worker. In the essay about supernatural beings, it also talks about Lady Wisdom, who in some Christian traditions is called Sophia and is the personification of the Holy Spirit in female form, oftentimes viewed as a goddess, typically among Gnostic Christians, but still. And then right below that, we have this chunk of the Divine Council. In this essay and in some annotations in the Old Testament of the Jewish Study Bible, it is implied that there was a pantheon of gods worshipped among the Hebrews at some point in history. But then why is that whole thou shalt have no other gods above me thing? Well, for one thing, that was directed at a specific group of people. It was not directed at the world, and that is exactly why Jewish people do not proselytize. Did I say that word right? You know what I'm trying to say. Proselytize? Anyway, it's not the only reason why they don't do that, but it's one of them. But Christian witches believe that if Jesus can use his hands and the earth to heal, then so can we. The story of the three wise men that found baby Jesus is actually, they're more accurately the three magi, which sounds an awful lot like magician. If they can track the stars in order to find destinations in life, that's astrology by the way, then so can we. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah is not a story of God destroying a city full of queer people. It is a story of God destroying a city full of abusers. That's what we'll say because we're on YouTube. And if God can destroy abusers, so can we. Witches who work with deities tend to call upon their deities and pray to them and ask them for assistance within their spells. It all checks out. But you can't just integrate God into your belief system. Actually, yes, you can. It's been done for thousands of years, according to this book, Christopaganism by Joyce and River Higginbotham, and it is a reliable source. There's a really thick bibliography in the back of this. The Judeo-Christian God was implemented into the Roman pantheon in ancient Rome, and the ancient Romans worshipped him alongside their pagan gods. Just when I was getting to the good part, they called him Iao. I-A-O. Iao. It's not the easiest to say, but they worshipped him alongside their pagan gods. There's also an entire other book on this subject called When God Had a Wife by Lynn Picknett and Clive Prince that implies that the Judeo-Christian God was implemented into the Canaanite religion. And it was believed that he was married, because lots of gods have spouses in paganism, to a Canaanite goddess named Asherah. And it talks about a couple other cultures that also implemented the Judeo-Christian God into their practices as pagans. Now you can argue all you want about whether or not you think that that's okay or whatever, but the comments that I see most often are that I'm just making this up, that I'm just pulling all of this out of nowhere, and that I must be the first and only Christian witch to ever exist. But the evidence says that that is simply not the case. There's also The Occult Christ by Ted Andrews, The Path of a Christian Witch by Adelina St. Clair, and I don't have any physical copies of her books, but Valerie Love is also a great author on this subject. But even the Bible is in favor of magic. Perhaps it's a little picky, don't throw children into the fire, like Canaanites did. But I'm pretty sure if you ask any modern witch, they'll be able to tell you that, that's not a really difficult law to follow. We're good with that. The Christopaganism book also goes into so much detail about how many non-canonical biblical texts were erased from history by the people that wanted to use Christianity to be powerful. Constantine and others, but still. There's also the Nag Hammadi texts, which again are some more ex-canonical texts that can be read that are supposedly, other written accounts about Jesus and people who knew about him, potentially witnessed him in action. If you're a Christian witch or a Christopagan, then yes, the Bible is important, but there's more to it than that. I hope that if anyone is actually curious in learning, that you'll actually look into the books and the Jewish annotated study Bibles that I've recommended. Also, my social media, obviously. Look at that candle flickering. I'm doing the Lord's work. Oh, that's right. I said I would show off the altar, didn't I? Okay, hang on. Also, every other Tuesday night on TikTok, as long as we still have TikTok, I stream with 3 other Christian witches doing what we call Witch Talk Bible Study, where we answer honest questions from people who are genuinely curious and not there to bash us, but just want to have a conversation. We're all Christian witches. 2 of my friends are working on writing books. I have a book in my head. It'll be on paper eventually, but that is something that we do every other Tuesday, the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of the month. And we usually do have a specific topic that we discuss, but we also just answer questions, and we're okay with straying off topic a little bit too. But all of this is to say, yes, you can be a Christian witch. This is my evidence as to why. You only showed 1 Bible verse. I showed 1 example of a Bible verse with an annotation that completely contradicts the traditional Christian way of thinking about magic. There's several others, I promise. And again, it's something that has been in Christianity since the beginning of Christianity. But people don't want to think about that because of fear-mongering and power and a million other things that I could go on a whole other hours-long tangent about. But I know we're kind of drifting towards long-form content again, but I'm not sure what y'all's attention spans are like. We'll save that for like the live streams when I've got Sarah and Lena and Mimi to bounce off of. All right, let's go take a look at that altar space. So this is the main altar space. This is stuff for my shop down here, and this is just my bulletin board of regular things. But this is the altar. She's a little dusty. Wow. Okay, this is telling me that I need to clean. But this is Jesus's area. I have his candle, his oil, some crystals, a statue. This bloodstone cross is my favorite. There is a myth that when Christ was crucified, his blood dripped onto a rock, and that is where we get bloodstone. I have this good luck candle sitting here. I rotate like where I put this, but today and I've had a lot of good luck today, so it's working. Here we have some things for Sophia, who, as I mentioned earlier, is also known as Lady Wisdom, or a female personification of the Holy Spirit. I have a statue and a little bracelet for her. I'll need to get her a new candle soon, it looks like. The green oil is hers. And then I have these crystals. Oh my gosh, this is so much better with the flash. I have my offering bowl and pendulum. And then this is some cinnamon that I burn, and yeah. This unorganized pile is stuff for Asherah, the blue candle, the statues. Again, some jewelry, the feminine body. I have seashells because she is associated with water. The Canaanites worshipped her as a goddess of the sea and the ocean. And then lastly, we have some stuff for the Judeo-Christian god Jehovah. I understand this is a Jesus statue, but this is what I have for him. The red candle, the statue, some crystals, some jewelry, and oil. I also have a little statue for my guardian angel, who isn't a huge part of my practice right now, but she is just someone that I honor and acknowledge. This is obviously a very crowded altar space. I am going to be moving soon in these next couple of months, so maybe I will have more room for it to be less crowded. All of my altar spaces are getting to be pretty crowded. I know that this can be a lot to take in for a lot of people. If you've watched this whole thing and you're open-minded and you have genuine questions because you're curious, ask away. If you've watched this whole thing and you're not willing to open your mind even a little bit and you just want to tell me that I'm going to hell or that I'm wrong or whatever, then this is not your place. Everyone has a place, but this is not it. Go find yours. And let me know what I should post on here more. It took me, I don't even know how many months to come up with this. I am not used to long form content. TikTok is my territory of choice, but that might be getting banned in the US, so I'm trying to adopt more long form content ideas besides just reposting old episodes of my podcast every now and then, which I will continue to do, but I want other stuff too. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you like this, subscribe, do all the things. All of my socials and other places where you can find me will be linked in the description. I'm also a small business owner. You should check out my business. And I'll see you guys sometime. Bye!